Right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to What is Design Thinking? And this is my name, John Teo. And in the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to discuss the following items. Number one, we know that design thinking is akin to creative thinking. So first, we are going to discuss, is there a need for creative thinking? And in that discussion, I'm going to show you that a creative person is a successful person. And next, we are going to discuss the differences, if there are any, among creativity, innovation, and design thinking. And in doing so, we are going to define what is design thinking. Then we'll talk about how all of us can be creative. And creative thinking means thinking out of the box. So we are going to discuss this item called how to think out of the box. And creative thinking is also coming up with new ideas. Are there any technique for generating ideas? We are going to discuss a couple of techniques. And finally, how can we apply design thinking? Design thinking is usually applied in problem solving, and we're going to look into that as the last topic. Okay, let us start with the first topic, the need for creative thinking. I want to start with an interesting puzzle. Okay, please listen carefully. If you know the answer to this puzzle, please unmute your microphone and tell us the answer. Okay, this is a very popular puzzle. There is a lady called Alien, okay, and she's a rich lady and she collects a lot of expensive jewelry, but she also looks for very good bargain. Maybe that's the reason why she's very rich. Let's say she comes to you, you are a jeweler. Not only you sell jewelry, but you also repair jewelry, okay? Let's say she comes to you with these four gold links, 1, 2, 3, 4. Each piece consisting of 3 links. Okay, and she wants you to join them together to form a bracelet of 12 links. Okay, so how can one do that? It's quite obvious, right? First, you cut off this link and then you join to this link. So you cut and weld 1 time, you cut and weld 2 times, you cut and weld 3 times, and you cut and weld 4 times. By doing that, you will get a bracelet with 12 links. Let us say every time you cut and weld, mind you, it's a gold link, you charge her $30. So obviously your fee for putting these 4 pieces together to form this bracelet will be 4 times 30 is $120. Let us say the next day Adian comes to you and say, I don't think you are you are comparable, because I just went to your competitor who is just situated across the road. She only charges me $25, not $30. So 4 times $25 is $100. You charge me $120, you are 20% more expensive. So why should I go to you? Now, you being a person who do not give up easily, you think for a while, then after that you say, Alian, please don't go to my competitor because I'm going to counter offer you $90. Of course, you get the job because $90 is cheaper than $100. So when you get the job, what will happen to you? Your profit will be reduced very drastically, right? Because originally you wanted to charge her $30 for cutting and welding. Now you cannot charge her $30. You have to reduce even lesser than $25, because if you reduce to $25, it will come to $100. So in order to quote her $90, you have to reduce it to something like $22.50, you know. But that means you have to reduce your profit drastically. But you still want to charge her $30 for each cutting and welding of each link. So you found another way out where every time you want to cut and weld a link, you still can charge her $30, and yet overall, you don't have to charge her $120, but you charge her $90. How do you do that? Actually, I've given you a clue already. If you still retain your price of $30 for cutting and welding each link, and yet overall you don't need to charge her 120 but only 90, that will mean you have found another way to cut and weld not 4 links but 3 links. Okay, and that's how you can come up with $90. Who can find this way? Instead of cutting and welding 4 links, you cut and weld 3 links, and yet you can get this bracelet of 12 links. Anybody? Maybe you come across this popular puzzle, you know the answer. Any of you wants to unmute your microphone and say? Okay, if not, I'll tell you the answer. Now, the obvious one, as I told you just now, is to cut and weld 1 time, cut and weld 2 times, cut and weld 3 times. At this point in time, you have a long change. So you need to cut and weld 4 times. This will give you $120. Actually, there's another way out. You cut 1 link and use this link to join these 2 links. You cut another link and you use this link to join these 2 links. So now you cut and weld 2 times. By this time, you have 1 link left over, and then you have a long chain. So all you need to do is just cut this link and join it like that. So you still get a bracelet of 12 links, but you don't have to cut and weld 4 times. You need to cut and weld 3 times. And that's how you can charge her $90. Wait, let me look at the chat. Oh, okay, nothing to do with, I thought somebody is trying to answer this question. All right, so what is the learning point? The learning point is, can anybody think of this? Usually people don't think of this situation, this solution, right? Straight away, many people will think of this solution because it's the obvious solution. So if people do not think of this solution and everybody think of this solution, so what makes you different from other people? Nothing, right? So it becomes a price of, it becomes a war of pricing, which is what is happening now. So if you can think out of the box and come up with solution which other people can not think about, then you'll be more successful. So this is one reason why creative thinking is important. Now, let us look at 4 or 5 years ago. S. Iswaran, then he was the second minister for trade and industry. He spoke in one of the conferences and he said this: innovation must be fostered at the national and corporate level. Why? Because it is the key to sustain growth, whether in a country or a company. So actually 4 or 5 years ago, we already know that all of us need to be innovative. If we are not innovative, then we may not be able to sustain whatever business we have. Another popular author, I think you know who he is, Edward de Bono, put it another way. He says, as competition intensifies, which is what is happening now, so does the need for creative thinking. It is no longer enough to do the same thing better. It is no longer enough to be efficient and solve problems. Businesses really need creativity. Why? To make the shift from administration to true entrepreneurship. Let me explain what he said in a kind of a graph. I conceived this graph when I wrote a book on creativity. The name of my book is called The Game of Thoughts. Okay, let me explain what I meant by this graph. If you run a company and the company is improving year after year, isn't it good? Yes, it is very good. But according to Edward de Bono, it is not good enough. Why? Because of the intensified competition nowadays. Even if your company continue to improve year after year, it's still no good because you need this breakthrough improvement. Okay, at some point in time, you need this breakthrough improvement, and then when you continue at the upper level, not in the same level. How do you get this breakthrough improvement? You need change and innovation. Let me explain what is this breakthrough improvement. Let us go back to the time where mobile phone were first conceived by Motorola. Before that, we have the telephone, right? Telephone, you cannot take it outside because it's connected to a line, to a landline. So you can either use it only at home or in the office. But here comes Motorola, and they came up with a phone that does not need a line to be attached to it. And so we call it a mobile phone. So it's actually a portable telephone. And it looks like that. Those of us who know or who have seen this phone will know it looks like this. It is very robust though, but it is not that light. It's quite heavy. So year after year, they improve the model by reducing the size, so it's more convenient for you to carry. You also reduce the weight. But after a while, another type of model took place. I think we all are quite familiar. It is also a mobile phone, but now this mobile phone has a screen. So in addition to speaking to one another verbally, you can also text one another. And this in this period, who are the famous manufacturer? Of course, Motorola is still there. You have Philips, you have Edison, but the most popular of them all was Nokia. I think you remember. For a long time, Nokia was dominating this mobile phone industry. Until now, we have a different model of mobile phone. We call it the smartphone. And who are the major player of this smartphone? We have Apple, we have Samsung, we have Huawei, and some other manufacturer. But what I'm trying to tell you is what happened to Nokia? Nokia is nowhere to be found nowadays. So this is what I believe Edward De Bono is trying to say. It is good to improve year after year, but after a while, you need this breakthrough improvement, because if you don't have this breakthrough improvement, then you cannot sustain yourself. Okay, so where you get this breakthrough improvement, as I say, you need innovation. So here shows you another need for creative thinking and innovation. Let us look at what this Jack Ma says about teaching our children. You know what he said? He said computers can do a lot of things much, much better than men. So if you want to teach your children not what computers, teach your children what computers cannot do. And what computers cannot do, they cannot think creatively. Why? Because machines don't have imagination. So here again, we see the importance of creative thinking. Now, in my book, I have a saying, and I put the saying here. I feel that a successful person is one who can do something different from others, of course, in a good way. I want to emphasize the word different. Let me show you what I mean. If I show you this picture, what do you see or what stands out? This red ball, right? In fact, there are more than a dozen balls here, and yet only one ball stands out. Why? Because this red ball is different from the others. The others are colored in yellow, and this red ball is colored in red. Not only that, all the other balls are smiling. This one is frowning. I give you another picture, then you understand what I mean. This is a picture, a very famous picture of a marching man. They are all wearing the same uniform, wearing the same cap. And so it's very hard for you to differentiate one from the other. But straight away, when you see this photograph, one of them stands out very prominently. Is the guy who yawned. Why? Because although he dresses the same as everybody, you can spot him out because he's different from the others. So the principle is, if you can do anything that is different, you will be able to be noticed. All right. If you can do something different from others, you'll be noticeable. And if the thing that makes you different actually benefits mankind, help society to solve some problem, you'll be successful, right? Let me give you some example of successful organization. GM, General Motors, we know is a very, very old company, and yet it's very successful. Why? Because it's the first company to introduce installment payment for car purchases. In the good old days, when you buy a car, it is like you buy any ordinary product. For example, like buying a shirt. You have to pay everything before they will give you the shirt or they will give you the car. But of course, car is more expensive than shirt. So here comes General Motors. He was saying, why can't we come up with a payment scheme that does not need anybody to pay upfront or big sum of money? All they need to do is to put down a down payment, and the balance of the money they can pay within specified amount of years. Of course, we are allowed to charge interest. This become a very, very good proposal, very good idea, and everybody start following it. But it does not matter whether it's being copied or being followed. The most important thing is General Motors was the first company to come up with this idea. It is like what I told you, just now uh, in the puzzle. If you are able to come up with an idea which everybody else have not thought about, then you can be successful. So General Motors first came up with this idea, and that's why it's so successful until today. Let us look at another one. CNN. CNN is a very popular global TV network. How come it can become so successful? Because they are the first global TV network to introduce 24 hours news. Look at Singapore. If we turn on to Channel 5, Channel 5 news come at night at 9 o'clock, correct? Let's say if you're not around at 9 o'clock or you are doing night shift, then you are not able to watch the news. So here comes CNN and they say, why don't we introduce 24 hours news? So anybody can turn on to the news any time of the day, any time of the night. And that's why they are the first person to think about that. And that's why they are very successful. Let me show you some successful product. This I took from the internet. This may just be an ordinary t-shirt with some symbol, but do you know how creative it is? Let's say you are in a country where the people do not speak your language. Let's say you want to hail a taxi and take you to the airport. It's very difficult to communicate with the taxi driver, right? But if you wear a t-shirt like this, you can point to the taxi driver, this symbol of the aeroplane, and I think the taxi driver will know that you want him to fetch you to the airport. So I thought this was a very innovative design. It's a very simple idea, but it's a very innovative design. Let us look at another one. This is a mug which people use to drink coffee, but people normally drink coffee during break time. So usually when people drink coffee, they take biscuits or they take cookies. So if you can design a coffee mug that has got a recess, that can take your cookie or your biscuit, don't you think it's a good mug? Well, I think so. This one is very interesting. Let's say you go to the toilet, or you take a bath. Usually you throw your clothing, especially your underclothing, all over the place. So you will end up on the floor, end up some other places. But if you have a kind of a hanger, something like this, these are not sharp, by the way. It looks sharp, but it's quite blunt at the tip. So even in your bathroom, you can throw all your clothing and your underclothing. It will catch onto this hanger, right? So it does not need to be thrown all over the place. Look at this tray. Usually when we do not put items on the tray uniformly, sometimes the tray can topple easily. But if you design a tray that looks like this, I don't think it is easy for the tray to topple over if you put items on it. What about this transparent toaster? For me, I always have problem with bread toaster. Sometimes I set it too long, when you check it out, it will be too black. But if you have, or if you make the two blades of toaster transparent, you can actually see the bread before it turns completely black. You can actually eject it out, right? So I thought it was a very good idea. And look at this chair. Ladies, for example, when they go to maybe a restaurant or so, sometimes they got to take an additional chair to put their bags. And this is not so safe because when you're not looking, somebody can take your bag away. But if you can design a chair which has got two slots that can take the sling of the bag, then you can keep your bag very securely under your chair, which I thought was a very good idea. And all this idea comes from people who think outside the box, because it is a brand new idea. Let me show you something from Singapore innovation. In SGH, Singapore General Hospital, where you have the cheaper ward, where you have a lot of patients sharing one ward. The problem is in the morning, a lot of people wants to go to the washroom either to brush their teeth or do their morning business. And so if you have a lot of patients sharing one ward, you have to wait for your turn to go to the washroom. So the nurses know that there is a lot of problem because if you manage to brush your teeth eventually, when you get back to your bed, your breakfast will be cold already. So what the nurses did was they brainstormed together and they came up with this idea of a mobile table. I do not know why they call it magic table, but it's a table that has got wheels that can be wheeled to the patient's bed. It contains a large mirror where the patients can actually look at themselves when they wash their face or brush their teeth. And of course, it includes a rack for towel and also containers for water. Actually, basically, it is used for the patient to brush the teeth so that the patient does not need to go to the toilet if it's crowded, and so the patient can eat the breakfast while it's still hot. This innovation, by the way, saves the nurses 60% in their timing. Usually it take about half an hour to do the morning wash up for the patient, but now it takes only 12 minutes. Let us look at another recent one. This lady, her name is called Esther Wang. She actually came up with a toy for children who are admitted to hospital. When young children, when you admit them to hospital, they are very frightened because they do not know what the doctor is going to do. Maybe poke some sharp thing into their skin and so on. So what she did was she actually conceived a toy. She called it a rabbit ray. And this actually invention actually won her international award. But by the way, if a child is being in, is being admitted to the hospital, what the child does is the child gets to play doctor to this toy rabbit ray, and in the process they get to learn about hospital procedures, about injection and so on and so forth. So by the time their turn come to undergo certain medical treatment, they are no longer very afraid. So I thought this was a very good and innovative invention. Okay, so I hope those examples I give you shows you that creativity is very important. So now let us look at what is the difference between creative thinking, innovation, and design thinking. Is there a difference? First and foremost, let me explain or define what is creative thinking. As you know from our discussion just now, creative thinking is coming up with idea that is new, that nobody has thought of it before. So that is creative thinking. Okay, and what is innovation? That idea that is new, if it benefits mankind or it does solve some uh, problem in the society, then it becomes innovation. So innovation is actually an application of creative thinking. So what is design thinking then? Design thinking is the emphasis on the user. So whatever solution it comes up from innovation, of course, it must be useful to the user. So design thinking is actually a human-centered approach to innovation with the emphasis on the user. Okay, and there is a link between creativity and innovation. Before your ideas can become actual product or services, you need this intermediate part. There is, you need to do a market research to see whether people want your idea or not. If it's a product, you need to look at the manufacturing issues or you look at the cost and so on. So there's a link between creativity and innovation. Now, as far as design thinking is concerned, it actually came out during the 1960s by one man. His name is called Horst Ritter. He discovered that there are some problems, especially very complicated problems, that are very hard to solve. And so he called this wicked problem. But he found that designers can solve tough problem. Okay, who are designers? Designers are the one where if you have an idea, a new idea, you go to the designer and you say, guys, I got this new idea, but I do not know how to come up with a product based on this idea. And then the designer, based on your new idea, will come up with a product. So it's not easy, right? Coming up with something that they are not even sure whether it will work or not. But yet designer usually come up with a product that satisfies the user. So Horst Ritter went to look at how a designer come up with the idea, because he considered a designer is able to solve what he called wicked problem. So this is what a designer does. A designer focuses on the needs of his customer. So that's the first thing. He focuses on the customer think of different way. That means come up with different ideas of meeting this need. Then select one method because you think of different ways. Then select one way, test it out. And if it fails, it does not matter. It goes back and take another idea, test it out. It's still not so good. Throw it away, take another idea. We call this iterates, going back and forth until they find the best solution. So he says this is the this is the solution to wicked problem, design thinking. That is, think of the customer, think of different ways, test it out. Okay, and this is what Tim Brown, the president of CEO of IDEO. IDEO is an organization that is actually responsible for design thinking. And this is what he said, which is actually a definition of design thinking. He said, design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate three things: the needs of the people, technology, and also ensuring business success. So design thinking has actually 5 phases. Number one, you think of the user, you empathize with the user. By doing that, you know what the user face, so you can define the problem. Once you understand what the problem is, you come up with a lot of ideas. This is where creative thinking is most important. But when you have different ideas, you will test it. You make prototype and test it. If it doesn't work, you go back and take another idea. That's why you see the two-way arrows here. Go back and forth until you find an idea that best solves this problem. Okay, and that's what design thinking is all about. But in order to be a good design thinker, you need this 5 mindset. One, think of user first. This is empathy, the capability to empathize. Then you must have the ability to look at the big picture. When you do that, your solution will be one that will help meet the need of the user. Not only that, it will one that will take into account the latest technology, and also to ensure that whatever business you do is viable, is sustainable. But in order to do that, you need to be creative. We call it think out of the box. Okay, you need to be able to think creative. I mean, to be able to have divergent thinking and convergent thinking, which I'm going to discuss in a short while. And finally, you have to think positive, because otherwise you will give up halfway. Okay, so these are the mindset. Now we come to this very important section. Many of you say, John, okay, I agree with you. Creative thinking is very, 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 very important. But how can I be a creative thinker? I'm just an ordinary person. You know, I admire people like those artists, people who can draw very well. They are the creative people. But I can't even draw anything, so I'm not a creative person. People who can sing, people who can play musical instrument, they are the creative people. But who am I? So in this section, I'm going to tell you that all of us can be creative. Okay, first of all, let us look at some photograph. I took this from the internet, by the way. You look at this man, and you look at this one that he's transporting. I do not know what it is. It looks like a small cabinet, or it looks like a small fridge. Whatever it is, let's say in Singapore, let's say you own a car and you buy this, we call it a small cabinet. Of course, it's a bit too big to be put inside your car, so you cannot transport it, right? So what do? You will ask the store, and you say, hey, why don't you send it to my home? I don't mind paying a little bit extra for the transportation. And so the store would use a small truck to send it to your home. But look at this man. He obviously he doesn't have a car. He only have a bicycle, and yet he can think of way to carry this fridge or whatever, with him. Or look at another example. This guy is riding on a motorcycle. His 2 hands are needed to ride on a motorcycle, and yet he can think of transporting this chair in this manner. Of course, when you reach the destination, you put back the seat, Or look at this. If the handle of your car is broken, you can actually take a bottle opener and use it as a car door handle. But actually, when you look at these people, Are they of the intellectual type? They are not, right? I don't think they are university graduate. In fact, some of them may not even have completed their education, and yet they can think of innovative way. So that shows you that actually any one of us can be innovative. But I'm going to show you more reason how you can be innovative. Let's look at some more innovative transportation. Look at this guy, he's very innovative, right? I mean, transporting this trolley, not transporting, moving this trolley around. And this guy modify his motorcycle so that the whole family can be transported. Of course, in Singapore, this may not be legal, but what I'm trying to emphasize is how did he manage to think of a way? This is creative thinking. Or look at this, if your side mirror is broken, and you don't have money to buy a proper side mirror, you can actually use your face mirror and glue and tape onto it. All right, now this man called Roger Sperry, he actually won a Nobel Prize for explaining how our brain works. Our brain is very complicated, but he make it so easy for us to understand. He said our brain has got two portions. One is the left brain, the other one is the right brain, and the two have different functions. The left brain is used for logical thinking, okay? And it's also used for language. When we talk, when we read, we actually use the left side of the brain. And when we do science or we do mathematics, we actually use the left side because it's all on logical thinking. The right side of the brain, however, is used for intuition, gut feeling, something that you cannot pin down definitely. And of course, it's used for creative thinking, it's used for music, it's used for art. Okay. Now, let me tell you how your two brain work together. Let's say you're reading a book, a novel, okay? Let's say you're reading this passage. It says, late at night, after midnight, somebody come knocking at your door. Now, it is your left brain, because I told you left brain is involved in language, that translate this passage into meaning for you. In other words, late at night, after midnight, somebody come knocking at your door. But your right brain has got the emotion. The right brain say, look here, who will come and visit you after midnight? Cannot be, right? If people want to visit you, they'll visit you in the daytime, correct? Not after midnight, definitely not after midnight. So he says, if anybody were to visit you after midnight, where people are sleeping, be careful, okay? Because something is not right. Either people visiting you to go and do harm to you, or even if your good friend visiting you at such odd hours, maybe your good friend has got some personal problem. That's why it needs you to help. But whatever it is, be careful when somebody visit you. That's how your two brain work, you know. And to further make you understand the two brain, your left side is anything to do with stability. In other words, it is very comfortable if you use your left brain to think of something, very familiar, very sensitive, very meaningful. Your right brain is on the other end of the spectrum. It is chaotic, very chaotic. Everything is in a disarray. Everything appears to be risky, unknown, nonsensical, and rubbish. And of course, you can transport from one state to the other. If you go from chaotic to stability, it is called critical thinking or logical thinking. If you go from stability to chaotic thinking, this is what you call creative thinking. So where is creative thinking? Obviously, it cannot be chaos. Right? If it's chaos, then nobody knows what you're talking about. So where is creative thinking? Actually, creative thinking is just at the edge of chaos. And where is that? Where is the breakthrough improvement we talked about earlier? It is same as creative thinking. It is found at the edge of chaos. Okay, and it is the same as convergent and divergent thinking. Your left brain is involved in convergent thinking. What is convergent thinking? It is a logical thinking where things proceed from one information to another. I give you an example. Let's say if I give you this equation, 3 plus 4 equals to what? Obviously, it's 7. It cannot be any other number. Okay. However, your right brain is involved in divergent thinking. What is divergent thinking? Remember, it is about chaos. It is a little bit disorder, haphazard. It's at the edge of chaos. So let us take the same equation. Instead of 3 plus 4 equals 7, I put it the other way around. 7 comprises of what? If I give you 2 blanks, of course, it can comprise 3 and 4, just like before. Or it can also comprise 2 and 5. Or it can comprise 1.5 plus 5.5. Or it can comprise 1.25 plus, there's no end. Whereas this one, there's only one answer. That's why we call it convergent thinking. It all converges to one solution. This one is called divergent thinking, where it diverges. Okay. Now, when we go to school, we are taught to use our left brain more often, right? For example, teacher said 1 plus 1 equals to what? If you said 3, you will get a 0 in your marking. But in creative thinking, 1 plus 1 can be equals to 3. How? Because one is a male, now the other one is a female. When you put a male and female together, you have offspring, right? You have kids, So 1 plus 1 can be 3, or if you're very productive, 1 plus 1 can be 4, can be 5, can be 6. But if you do that into school, your teacher will give you a 0. So what I'm trying to tell you is this. When we finish school, we tend to use our left brain more than our right brain. And that's why it appears that we cannot be creative. But now I'm telling you, you have the right brain, the one that gives you divergent thinking. Then you know you can also be creative. Okay? So let us examine what is thinking out of the box. Okay, just now I told you creativity is thinking outside the box. Once again, I give you a puzzle, a very popular puzzle. Many of you will have seen this before. If I give you 9 dots and I ask you to take a pen or a pencil and join all these 9 dots without taking your pen or pencil off the paper, can you do it? Let me show you. Let me put my pencil on. If I allow you to take your pen or pencil off the paper, I can do it with 3 lines. For example, this is 1 line. I take my pen out of the paper. I draw another line. I take my pen out of the paper. I draw 1 more line. So I can join these 9 dots by using 3 lines. But the condition is you cannot take the pen off the paper. So let me undo it first. But if I cannot take my pen off the paper, I can do it with 5 lines. Let me show you. 1 line without taking off the paper. The second line, third line, fourth line, 5 line. Okay? But I cannot do it with 4 lines. So can you do it? Let me undo it. For those of you who know, you may know the answer. If not, let me tell you the answer. The answer is this. 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines. I think some of you may have come across it. But then you may tell me, say, John, it's not fair. You never tell me that the lines can get outside the perimeter of the 9 dots. But did I tell you it cannot? I never tell you, right? So the problem with people is they put a restriction in their thinking. When I ask them to draw four lines joining these 9 dots, it's like me. I can find 5 lines, but I cannot find 4 lines. Why? Because in my mind, these lines cannot get outside the perimeter of these 9 dots. And you see, the perimeter of these 9 dots look like a box. So maybe the phrase thinking out of the box come from this puzzle. So one way in which you can think outside the box is not to limit yourself. Okay, don't put a restriction in your thinking. Now, before I ask you to come up with another way of solving this problem, using 3 lines instead of 4 lines. Let me tell you what this famous person, Henry Ford, said. Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest work of all, and that's why so few of us do it. Let me tell you what he meant. You know who is Henry Ford, right? During his day, he's supposed to be the most successful entrepreneur in his time. Okay, so his friends talk to him. He said, Henry, I was in the same class as you, even my result is better than you. You are just an average student, and yet you are now so successful, far ahead of all of us. What is it that makes you tick? And this is what Henry Ford said. Thinking is the hardest word. Oh, that's why so few of us do it. What he meant is, all of you never think deeply enough. If you think deeply enough, you will get ideas which other people never thought about. And for me, I thought about ideas which other people never think about, and then I put it into practice, and that's why I can be successful. And why we never think about some ideas? Because we put restriction in our thinking. So how can you join these 9 dots? Not with 4 lines, but with 3 lines. This is what I do. Let me show you how I do it. If the dots have a thickness, actually every dot have got a thickness, whether it's thin or thick. Let us say the dot is this thickness. You can draw a line, cutting the top of this dot, cutting the bottom of this dot. You must pass through the middle dot, right? Now, if this being the case, then this line cannot be totally horizontal. It must be inclining somewhat. If the line is inclining somewhat, it will reach a point here where you can also go back in an inclining line. It will also go through these 3 dots, and therefore you can connect all the 9 dots using 3 lines. No need 4 lines. So you see, if you don't put any restriction in your thinking, you can solve it with 3 lines. Okay, let us up the ante. Can you do it 1 line? Okay, actually you can. If you take a roller paint and you paint 1 line, then you do it 1 line. Of course, again, I will get objection from people. But John, this is a thick line. All the time we have been thinking about thin line. Yes, we were speaking about thin line, but I never say you cannot use the thick line. My question was, can you join it with 1 line? But if you don't like a thick line, there are many other ways of solving this with a thin line. Example, if I'm allowed to cut the paper, I can cut the paper and align the 9 dots this way, right? So I can draw 1 line, a thin line. Okay, if you don't like cutting the paper, you can also do it this way. Okay, if you fold the paper like this, such that the 2 folded edges will meet together in the middle, all you need to do is just take a pencil with a very thick lead, maybe a China graph or something like that. When you draw 1 line here, part of the lead will draw a line here, and then the other part of the lead will draw a line here. So you get 3 lines automatically, and you only need to draw 1 line. If you still don't like this idea, you can skew the paper, and then you can draw 1 continuous line, and you will join all the 9 dots. If you still don't like this idea, provided you are good in origami, you can fold the paper using origami, such that all the 9 dots line together, and you can draw 1 line. So you can also solve it, right? Let us go to the ultimate. Can you join these 9 dots with your pen or pencil without drawing any lines? How? Meaning, if you take your pen or pencil, you just point or poke at 1 dot, it will somehow connect to the other dots without having to join any lines. How to do that? Of course, since we are talking about a thick line, we can also think about a gigantic ballpoint. Okay, if we think about a gigantic ballpoint, the diameter of the ball of the ballpoint pen is so big that it covers up the whole 9 dots. So of course, then it will solve this problem. But let us say we don't want to think of such gigantic ballpoint, just a normal ballpoint pen or a pencil. Is it possible to use a normal ballpoint pen or a pencil to touch on 1 dot and it will connect to all the 9 dots? Yes, it can be done by folding the paper. Okay, if you fold the piece of paper this way, you'll find that all the dots line up together. And all you need to do is just take your pen or pencil and poke on it, and you will be able to join on the 9 dots without drawing any line. So you see, generally speaking, is there any challenges or any problem that you cannot solve? Answer is no. It's a matter of how you think and how you think out of the box. Okay. Another way of thinking out of the box is ask what if question. What if the 9 dots have thickness and the line was thin? Then you can solve by doing 3 lines. What if the line was a thick one? Then you can solve it by drawing 1 line. What if we use a gigantic ballpoint pen, like I said just now? Then we can join the 9 dots without having to draw any line. What if we use origami to solve? And what if the paper could be folded? So if you keep on asking what if, you will find ways in which you can come up with new ideas. Okay. Now,
So with
let me,
this, John,
yes,
allow me now to pause you. And I think this is a great segue at this point in time to say thank you to John. That was really interesting about design thinking and how it has actually moved from creative thinking onwards. Due
yep.
to the time track now is 12:50. We've just got about 10 more minutes before this webinar session ends. What I'd like to do now, John, is to take the opportunity for questions. And there
Okay.
are 4 questions in the Q&A tab. So the anonymous attendee actually said, if design thinking
Mm.
is user-centric, then how can we ensure we choose the right user to engage in the first place? Won't the ideas we generate very much depend on who we engage in the first place? Would you like to share your thoughts, John?
Yes, definitely. You see, when you solve a problem, the problem originates from somewhere, right? So it depends on who originates a problem. You are right. I mean, different people, when they give you this challenge or they give you this problem, they present different challenges or problem to you, because different people see problem differently. So you are absolutely correct. If it's human centric, then the solution will depend on who asks you to solve this problem.
Thanks, John. And the other part, while you're sharing that mental mode
Yes.
actually, play an impact on this, how can we ensure we choose the right user to engage in the first place? Would you like to address that?
Okay, if you are talking about solving a generic problem, then you have to observe. So it is like something like statistics. You have to look at all those people who tend to use your solution. Then you will come up with a solution that will solve the majority of the user. You know.
Got it. Right.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Now, there was another question asking, what conditions are design thinking not suitable? Under what conditions would design thinking be not suitable? Let me rephrase that for you.
Okay. In fact, as I told you, design thinking is used to solve tough problem. Okay. So in what area design thinking is not suitable? If you want to solve a problem, design thinking is the best method to use to solve a problem. Okay. You can also use ordinary logical thinking, but as I explained to you, everybody will go this route to solve this problem. So what makes you different from others? Nothing, right? So you have to come up with an idea that is different from others, and yet it is beneficial to people, and that's design thinking. So I think in a way design thinking is the best way to solve a problem, because it enables you to think out of the box, to come up with ideas that other people have not thought about it. Because
Fantastic.
if you come up with ideas, everybody have thought about it, it does not make you different from everybody else.
Great. Great. John, I'm just gonna push this a little bit more.
Yeah.
You shared that design thinking is actually very applicable across solving problems. Am I correct?
Yes.
And if let's put this into the workplace, if we had a process problem, do you think design thinking would be able to support us?
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. And of course, very much used if you're trying to find your unique selling proposition, your uniqueness in your product, I would say.
Yes, the very fact that you mentioned the word uniqueness means you're different from everybody else. How can
Thank
you
you.
think of an idea that is different from people? Not easy. That's why Henry Ford say you have to think deeply. Actually, all of us have got that, because I told you all of us have got the two different brain hemisphere. Okay, we have that right brain where we can help us to think creatively, but because of our education and because of the way we are being brought up, we tend to use our left brain more often. There's nothing wrong with it, except that we are now thinking logically, which is what most people would do because of the education system. And so if we engage our right brain more often, we can come up with ideas which other people may not think about it yet. and that will make us different from people, and that will make us successful.
Right. Thank you very much, John. So based on this time check now, I'm just going to run through the list of questions in the questions tab. So folks, if you do have a question, please type it out into the Q&A tab. Yeah, and we'll be more than happy to answer you. Now, we might not have an answer to you immediately, but we'll definitely try to get to you. Let me just run through this, and there's a participant, attendee actually put a question here. Being trained in a traditional education system, how do we train ourselves or our team to start thinking out of the box and thinking creatively? Are there steps? 1, 2, 3 methods to help us with those? John,
Yes.
go ahead.
Very, very good question. A lot of people asking me this question. Just now, I mean, I must apologize that I didn't know it would take longer than I expected. I was about to tell you a few techniques that can help you generate ideas, okay? I was about to go into that. There are some techniques to help you generate new ideas. Now, because we are all grown up, by the time we reach adulthood, most of our thinking style, our mindset, our behavior style are quite fixed by the time we achieve adulthood. Now, if you want to change your mindset and to think out of the box, of course, as I told you, there are some technique for you to do that, but you must deliberately do it. Okay, every time a challenge um, present itself to you, instead of just thinking logically, you must deliberately tell yourself, I was told if I think out of the box, I can come up with other answers. So you have to deliberately at that point in time think outside the box and see whether you can come up with new ideas. And you have to continually doing this all the time until it becomes a habit. I don't know how long it would take you to become a habit, but like for me, it has become a habit. So every time I face with a challenge, with a problem, instead of just thinking at the usual logical answer, my mind will start thinking outside the box and see whether I can get other answers or not. So it's not all the time that you can get very unique answers. Sometimes you can't. But the fact is that at least you think out of the box. There is a possibility where you can get,
Thank you.
very unique answers, and that makes you different from other people.
Thank you so much, John. Now we're just about 3 minutes to the top of the hour. There are lots and lots of questions coming through. So we'll try to answer, on the web, but I would like to invite Julian at this point in time. Julian, would you like to share? Because there were a couple of questions around, where can I hear John more? Where can I learn from John a little bit more? Are you conducting any specific, design thinking training? So with this in mind, Julian, are you here with us? There you go. All right, so Julian would, please go ahead, Julian.
Hi, thank you everyone. So thank you all for your attention in this webinar. So as Gerald just mentioned, if anyone is interested in getting more acquainted with design thinking, here I have a brief overview of all the design thinking courses that are provided by NTUC Learning Hub. So as you can see, these courses are suitable for everyone in the organization from, depending on your role in the various respective organizations. So if you allow me to just go through briefly the different courses to just take you through. The first level of design thinking is the design thinking for operations. So what this does is that, in addition to what John mentioned earlier, this will introduce you to the design thinking processes. So this is similar to what your participant was asking about. Are there any processes, right? So this will take you through the design thinking process and familiarize yourself with the methodologies where you will learn how to apply and to execute these processes to challenge the norms in the organizations and really to think out of the box. So secondly, we also have another course called the Design Thinking for Innovation. So what this is for anyone in the supervisory or managerial role. So here you'll be able to walk through the 6 stages of design thinking process. You'll be really solving real life problems and thereby facilitating unique and innovative solutions. Finally, we also have a course called the Implement Design Thinking. So this is more suitable for the project team. So here you'll be establishing the design thinking, design sprint framework, which was first developed by Google to help answer critical business questions through design prototyping and testing ideas with users, right? So all these courses are facilitated by design thinking experts such as John and other facilitators. So if there are any interested parties, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you,
Great.
Gerald.
Thank you very much, Julian, for this. And for those of you who are looking for